Liberals really don't like Thanksgiving for any number of reasons. You can find the truth in that statement in the multicultural educational curriculum. Liberals don't like Thanksgiving because they think it's racist. They think Thanksgiving is all about white supremacy. Thanksgiving is the result of white Europeans coming to this country and kicking out the Indians, obliterating the Native Americans, taking their land, taking everything they had, and settling the land for ourselves. That's inherently racist, and it was warlike, and it was white supremacy, and they're made nervous by the holiday. They also think that Thanksgiving's sexist. You know why they think it's sexist? This kind of goes back because traditionally Thanksgiving, it's the women in the kitchen and the men in front of the TV watching football. So Thanksgiving was always a holiday featuring the subordination and subjugation of women into traditional patriarchal domineering roles. They also think Thanksgiving is killing the environment. They think Thanksgiving celebrates environmental destruction. Well, you have to get the food. You have to raise the turkeys. You have to feed the turkeys. You have to do whatever. It's an excess focus on food, too much environmental damage. And, of course, it's anti-animal rights, quite naturally. And last but not least, don't doubt me on any of this. These are the kind of things, by the way, if I may be selfish for a moment, these are the kind of things and many other things like them why Catherine and I are writing these children's books. The truth of American history, the truth of the American founding. Because liberals really think that Thanksgiving is ultimately about celebrating genocide. They think the entire aspect, the entire series of events that led to America being created by the discovery of white Europeans conquering this land, taking and stealing whatever we wanted. And we had to kill people en route. We had to kill people along the way. Thanksgiving is a standing symbol of white European genocide. Now, I can imagine some of you looking at the radio and saying, come on, this is over the top. It is not. If you doubt me, Google any of this. You will find all kinds of documentation for it. You'll find opinion pieces, op-ed pieces. You'll find more than what I'm telling you here that liberals find wrong with Thanksgiving. There is one significant change, however, this year. One significant change. The Huffing and Puffington Post, normally every Thanksgiving, makes villains out of the Pilgrims. Most liberal publications, most leftists do. I mean, the Pilgrims were the original villains, white European villains. They were the original genocide practitioners. They came and killed and stole and conquered. They took everything. They were white European and religious freaks to boot. But this year, the Huffing and Puffington Post says we need to think of the Pilgrims in the same way we're looking at Syrian refugees today. Yes, indeed. The Huffing and Puffington Post wants us to remember that the Pilgrims were a persecuted minority fleeing religious persecution and violence, just like the Syrian refugees who are fleeing religious persecution and violence. So they want there to be an established moral equivalence to the Pilgrims and the Syrian refugees in order to further the notion that the Syrian refugees should be admitted with no questions. It's the compassionate thing, why they are the modern equivalent of our Pilgrims. This is much the same kind of thinking as at Christmas time. You'll find some liberals say that your average homeless guy is the moral equivalent of Mary and Joseph looking for a hotel. Mary and Joseph, the original homeless, the parents of Jesus Christ. Same way here. So in this year we have an exception, at least in the Huffington Post. They're not going to do an excoriating piece on the Pilgrims this year because instead they want to use the Pilgrims as an example of the Syrian refugees to draw a comparison there so that we will think twice about opposing the mass importation of Syrian refugees. That's how they twist themselves into knots. Hang in there, folks. Back with much more tomorrow. Yes, sirree, back we are. Rush Limbaugh, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have official Thanksgiving show. One thing about this huffing and puffing and peace story, I want you to listen to these two paragraphs. As you prepare for your Thanksgiving Day feast, it's worth keeping in mind that the U.S. has a long history of taking in refugees. And he's talking about the Pilgrims here. Refugees who fled persecution in their home countries. Now, next paragraph. And this, folks, is 100% wrong. It's what's taught. When the Mayflower Pilgrims landed in New England in the early 17th century, they established a harvest celebration that would later become known as Thanksgiving by sitting down with Native Americans gracious enough to share their land and way of life. And, well, we all know how that turned out because the Pilgrims then committed genocide against. I mean, it's near criminal the way these people have rewritten and maybe don't even understand history in the first place. That paragraph is 150% wrong. But he goes on to say, today the Pilgrims are embodied in the Syrian refugees, which means if you take this guy all the way out to his logic conclusion, the Syrian refugees are going to kill all of us after sitting down and having dinner with us, and they're going to take everything we've got, and they're going to mass march all over the country, commit genocide, and establish this nation as Syria West. I mean, that's what the guy is saying. His name is, what's his name? Igor Bobik, Associate Politics Editor, I guess at the Huffing and Puffington Post. Igor Bobik.